My stepmother's voice sliced through the air like a blade. This is my family now, and you're not in it. I was 16, standing in the living room I'd called home for a decade, my backpack slung over one shoulder, trembling as her words sank in. The woman who'd promised my dad to care for me was shoving me out the door, her eyes colder than the February wind waiting outside. I'd always known Linda didn't love me like she loved her own kids, Tim and Sarah, but I never expected this. My dad was gone. Cancer took him 2 years prior, and with him went any warmth in our house. Linda married him when I was 6, and though she smiled at first, it was the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. I was Ella, the leftover from Dad's first marriage, the kid who didn't fit her vision of a perfect family. Tim and Sarah, her biological children, were her pride. I was the reminder of a life she hadn't chosen. Still, I tried. I washed dishes, kept my grades up, stayed quiet, but nothing was enough. That night, she handed me $200 and a bus ticket to nowhere, saying, "You're old enough to figure it out." Tim smirked from the couch. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. I walked out, the door slamming behind me, and the world felt like it was crumbling. The streets were unforgiving. The $200 lasted a week: motel rooms, cheap burgers, and a second-hand coat from a thrift store. I was too proud to beg and too scared to call anyone. My dad's sister, Aunt Marie, lived across the country, but I hadn't spoken to her since the funeral. I didn't know if she'd want me. I slept in bus stations, lied about my age to get odd jobs, and learned fast that trust is a luxury. Hunger became a constant companion, but so did defiance. I wasn't going to let Linda's rejection define me. I'd survive, not because of her, but despite her. One night, shivering in a diner with a single coffee to justify my seat, I met Rosa. She was a waitress, maybe 50, with laugh lines and a voice that carried the weight of someone who'd seen it all. She slid a plate of fries in front of me and said, "Kid, you look like you're carrying the world. Eat something." I mumbled thanks, too ashamed to admit I couldn't pay. She didn't ask for money. Instead, she asked my story. I didn't tell her much, just that I was on my own. Rosa didn't pry. She offered me a couch in her tiny apartment and a job bussing tables. It wasn't charity, she said. It was a chance. I took it. Rosa became my anchor. She taught me how to budget, how to dodge trouble, and how to dream again. I saved every penny, enrolled in community college, and worked nights. I studied social work, driven by a fire to help kids like me, kids who felt invisible. By 20, I'd moved out of Rosa's place, got my own studio, and started volunteering at a youth shelter. I wasn't rich, but I was building something. I was building me. 10 years after Linda kicked me out, I was 26, running a nonprofit for at-risk teens in Seattle. We provided housing, counseling, and job training. I'd poured my heart into it, and it was thriving. The local paper ran a story on us, and my face was plastered on their website, smiling beside a group of kids who'd become my family. I didn't think about Linda much anymore. She was a scar, not a wound, but karma has a way of circling back. One rainy afternoon, a woman walked into our shelter. She was thin, her hair graying, her eyes hollow. It took me a moment to recognize her. Linda. She looked like life had chewed her up and spat her out. She didn't recognize me at first, not until I said, "Hello, Linda." Her face froze, a mix of shock and shame. She stammered, "Ella, you're doing all this?" I nodded, keeping my voice steady. She looked away, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She told me her story, unprompted. Tim had spiraled into addiction, draining her savings. Sarah had cut contact, blaming Linda for their fractured family. Her second husband left her, and the house, my dad's house, was foreclosed. She was alone, broke, and desperate. She'd seen the article about the shelter and came looking for help, not knowing I was the one running it. The irony was almost too perfect. I could have turned her away, Part of me wanted to. I remembered the cold of that February night, the weight of her words, the smirk on Tim's face. But another part of me, the part Rosa had nurtured, the part that believed in second chances, knew I wouldn't. I sat her down, got her a coffee, and listened. She cried, apologizing in broken sentences. I was wrong, Ella. I was cruel. I thought I was protecting my kids, but I ruined everything. I didn't forgive her, not outright. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. But I offered her a bed in the shelter, a job application, and a counselor's card. We help people start over, I said. Even you. The next months were strange. Linda stayed at the shelter, working in the kitchen, keeping her head down. She wasn't the same woman who'd thrown me out. Life had humbled her, stripped away the arrogance. I didn't trust her, but I didn't hate her either. I saw her really try to make amends. She wrote letters to Sarah, who didn't write back. She visited Tim in rehab, though he refused to see her. And sometimes, she'd look at me with something like pride, though I didn't need it anymore. One evening, as we locked up the shelter, Linda stopped me. Ella, she said, her voice soft, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. You're more family than I ever was. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and walked away. But her words stayed with me, like a pebble in my shoe. I'd built a life without her, surrounded by people who chose me, Rosa, my coworkers, the kids we helped. Yet, seeing Linda broken made me question what family really meant. Was it blood choice or something harder? Like Grace, the shelter grew. We opened a second location, and I spoke at conferences about youth resilience. Rosa, now retired, came to every event, cheering louder than anyone. The kids at the shelter called me Miss Ella, and their trust felt like a gift I'd never take for granted. Linda stayed on, quietly rebuilding her life. She never asked for more than I gave, and I never offered more than I could. Looking back, I realized karma wasn't just Linda's downfall. It was my rise. It was the way life balanced the scales, not with revenge, but with meaning. I'd turned my pain into purpose, my rejection into strength. Linda's cruelty had pushed me out, but it also pushed me forward. I didn't need her apology to heal, but hearing it reminded me that even the worst mistakes don't have to define us. We can choose to be better. What do you think? Was I right to help Linda? Or should I have turned her away? Share your thoughts on where the line between justice and compassion lies.